Have you ever wondered how to become a better healer in an MMO? If so, you're in the right place. Hi, my name is Adorisian, and today I'll be taking you through 10 ways you can become a better healer in an MMORPG. While this video is geared towards new healers in Star Wars: The Old Republic, all of the basic ideas apply to other MMOs as well, like World of Warcraft, The Elder Scrolls Online, or Final Fantasy. But what exactly is healing in an MMO? Well, at its simplest form, it's the act of targeting damaged players and casting helpful or healing spells on them. But there is a bit more to it than that, as we'll see later on. So let's jump in. Number 1. Learn your class. You may be sitting there thinking, but I already know my class. That's how I know that this or that ability heals multiple people at once. And you'd be on the right track. Like a lot of things with healing, there's more to it. See, every ability in the game falls into one of three groups: active abilities, passive abilities, and utilities. Active abilities are abilities that you click on to activate, like healing abilities. Passive abilities are abilities that come with your class, but you don't activate them. They're just there, working in the background. And they modify your active abilities in some very important ways, like using less resources to cast the ability, or eliminating an ability's cooldown. Last, utilities are similar to passive abilities, but you get to pick which ones you have and can change them at any time. This is really useful for dealing with certain boss fights. To truly learn your class, you need to know how all three types of abilities interact with one another. When a passive or a utility causes certain abilities to work well together, this is something you need to know. The interaction between the Combat Medic's Bacta Infusion and Advanced Medical Probe is an excellent example of this. Advanced Medical Probe is an active ability that heals a single target for a large amount, with a 1.86 second cast time and an 11-second cooldown. As a matter of fact, it does the most single target healing in a Combat Medic's toolkit. Bacta Infusion is another active ability that heals for slightly less than Advanced Medical Probe, has no cast time, and a 20-second cooldown. But, thanks to the passive ability Emergency Response, Bacta Infusion also eliminates the cast time of the next Advanced Medical Probe. So naturally, Combat Medics always try to cast Bacta Infusion before Advanced Medical Probe, so that they can take advantage of this passive. Remember, healing is a marathon, not a sprint, and you need to make your resource pool last for the whole fight, which could be several minutes. Finding ways that your abilities synergize together to use less resources for the same amount of healing will really pay off. So the next time you're waiting on the group finder, pop open your Combat Proficiencies panel by pressing K on your keyboard and start studying your passives and utilities. Number 2. Learn the fights. Major enemies in flashpoints and operations, called bosses, have abilities of their own that we will have to deal with. These are commonly referred to as mechanics. They can be very punishing sometimes if you don't know what they are or aren't expecting them. If you know you're about to run a certain flashpoint or operation with some friends, it's really worth looking up guides online to see what mechanics you'll need to be aware of during the boss fights. I've linked 3 websites in the description that have good guides for flashpoints and operations. As you're reading through them, pay attention to phrases like "healers should watch out for," "does a lot of damage," "stacking debuff," and so on. These are mechanics that, as a healer, you need to be ready and waiting for. Now, these websites can sometimes throw a lot of information at you in a short amount of time, so try to find a video on YouTube of someone doing that boss fight. I find it helps me see what the guide is talking about, and it will give you a better idea of how to deal with the mechanics. Number 3. Customize your user interface layout. The third thing we're going to go over is modifying your user interface. Your user interface, or UI, is the layout and positioning of the buttons you press and the messages you get from the game. Since the UI is the primary way the game gives you information, Having it arranged in a useful way is important to healing in an MMO. The exact layout you should use depends on personal preference, but there are some general rules you should follow. First of all, use your raid frames for all group content. The health bars of your group members in the standard UI setup are really tiny. They're basically smaller versions of this. You need to be able to tell at a glance how much health a player has, so having the bigger health bars of the raid frames really helps. Having the bigger health bars will also reduce eye strain and fatigue during longer play sessions. To enable this, we'll hit our escape key to open up the game menu and select Preferences. On the left side of the window that pops up, we'll click on User Interface, and then on the right, we're going to scroll down to the Operations Frames section. And make sure that Use Operation Frames as Group Frames is toggled on. Then go ahead and click Apply. Now the second rule of thumb is that your character and the space around it should be visible at all times. This way you can make sure you can see where to run to in order to avoid damaging area of effect attacks. You should also get comfortable with zooming your camera out so that you can see more around you. In this clip, you can see that with the camera in default position, I really can't see what's going on anywhere but right in front of me. This causes me to run into some bad AoE and keeps me from effectively using my best area of effect healing ability. Compare that to this next clip where the camera is much more zoomed out. I can see much more of the space around my character and can keep tabs on other players much more easily. So while we're in the Preferences menu, we'll go ahead and set our camera zoom options to help with this. On the left side of the Preferences window, click on Controls, and then look for this option here, Camera Max Distance. Go ahead and move this slider all the way to the right so that it is at 100%. Click Apply, then go ahead and click OK. You should now see that you can zoom really far out and see a lot more of what's around you. Third, your unit frames and minimap should be easily visible while keeping your character in sight and located in a relatively central location. This will make it much easier to keep tabs on the health of your group and where they are located. You really don't want to have to spend time searching for someone in the middle of a battle in order to heal or revive them. To set this up, we're going to hit our escape key again, but this time we're going to select Interface Editor. The first thing we're going to do is drag our minimap out from the corner of the screen. Now where you put it will depend on personal preference. I like it over here off to the side a bit, but some people like to put it down here near the bottom and then arrange their action bars around the map. Either way is fine, so do what works for you. If you find the map is a bit too small, you can adjust the size with this slider right here. Moving it right makes the map bigger, moving it left makes the map smaller. I like it at about 1.1. The second thing we're going to do is set up our operations frames. Let's go over here, click on this box on the left, and drag it to wherever you like. I like my frames on the right, about here. Now that we have its position set, let's go over here and scroll down to debuff scale, and set that at about 0.8. This will make any debuffs cast on our group stand out more. We'll also scroll down a bit more and set our buff scale to 0.5. It's okay to have the buffs be a bit smaller, since that's information that we usually don't need. We'll set party spacing to 20, which will increase the space between the unit frames. This will keep our frames from being covered up by our debuff icons. The last things we're going to adjust are the health width and health height sliders. Go ahead and crank these up to max to make the health bars of our group as big and easy to see as possible. Now, as you can see, there are a lot more settings here to use. Feel free to play around with them to suit your preference. Just remember, never check this box right here. Show only removable debuffs. Some bosses will put debuffs on players that can't be removed. but that you need to know about since they're central to properly defeating the boss. And this is our fourth rule. I know I just mentioned it, but it's worth repeating. As a healer, you will need to cleanse your party of different debuffs, such as bleeds, poisons, damage over time spells, and more. And some debuffs can't be cleansed, but you need to know about them anyway since they're central to boss mechanics. Making sure that your debuffs stand out on your unit frames is crucial. The last rule of a good UI setup is this. Any information or windows that you don't absolutely need in order to heal should be off to the side of your screen. This would include things like your social bar, your menu bar, your alignment toggle, your companion frame, and your chat box. Feel free to move these as you see fit, so long as they're off to the side and out of the way. Once you're done making changes to your UI, come up here to this box, type in a name for your UI setup, and click this disk icon to save it. This way, if you create another healing character, you can load this same UI layout without having to redo everything. You don't want to save over the default UI though, since our healer setup might not be as good for, say, a tank or damage dealer. To load a UI, go up here to this drop-down menu, select the layout you want to load. Say for instance that I want to load my usual healer UI setup, which is slightly different from this. I messed with the UI scaling settings, but it's basically the same. And then click this little load button right here. Number 4, set up your action bars and keybinds properly. As a healer, we really don't have a set rotation of abilities to use, in the same way that damage dealers do. What abilities we use depend greatly on the situation we find ourselves in, so knowing where everything is on your action bars is crucial. I have all my active healing abilities in these 7 slots. These next 3 are cooldowns that eliminate cast times, ability cooldowns, and resource costs. These 4 abilities are all related to personal survival. These are crowd control abilities. This is my cleanse. These abilities deal damage, and these are just general utilities. You don't have to have the same setup that I do, but the point is that you should know where each ability is on your action bar and have them arranged in a way that makes sense to you, and so that you can find them quickly. Setting up keybinds is also really important for a healer since it reduces the time it takes for us to cast an ability. As you can see in this clip, clicking on a target in your raid frame and then clicking on an ability is very slow because of the time it takes to move your mouse around the screen. A keybind is a menu setting that allows us to activate an ability by pressing something on our keyboard instead of clicking on it, which really helps with using abilities faster. The faster we can activate an ability, the faster we can react to emerging situations. Get used to healing this way, it really does save time and lives. To set up or edit your keybinds, hit the escape key to bring up the main menu, select Preferences, then select this Key Bindings tab at the bottom. Click on Quick Bar, click on the slot you would like to edit, then press the key you wish to bind to that slot, and go ahead and click Apply. Now, every time you press that key on your keyboard, whatever ability is in that slot on your action bar will activate. If you'd like to save this key binding setup to use on other characters, click the Key Binding Import/Export tab, type a name for the setup in this box, then click the Save icon. To load a keybind setup, select the layout you want to load from the Key Presets list on the right, and then click the Load button. Number 5. Efficiency is key. I know I've said this already, but it really is worth saying again. Healing is a marathon, not a sprint. You have a finite amount of resources to use when healing, and it has to last several minutes. Because of this, we really need to make sure we're using the right abilities at the right times. Now, I'm not saying that healing will never feel like a sprint. There are definitely times where people will take a ton of damage and very quickly. The point I'm trying to make is that we need to make sure we're conserving enough resources to be able to heal through situations like that. Using an area of effect healing ability to heal just one target, or spamming single target heals to heal up multiple people when you have an area of effect heal available and people are clustered together, well, that's just not efficient. We need to make sure we're using the right tool for the right job. So if you find yourself not being able to heal due to a lack of resources, take a long, hard look at what abilities you're using and when. Number 6, communication is key. Good communication can really help your group succeed. Communicating cooldown usage, positioning issues, like when someone's standing in harmful AoE, who has a debuff and needs cleansed, and so on, can really help contribute to a group's success. Also, communicating with other healers in the group about who's healing whom can really help increase your efficiency and effective healing output. After all, if you're healing someone who has just healed to full health, well, that's a waste of resources. Number 7. Familiarize yourself with other classes in your group. You don't need to be a subject matter expert in every class, but having a solid idea of the strengths and weaknesses of the other classes will really help you predict what that player will tend to do in a particular situation. For example, if you have a sniper or gunslinger in your group, be ready to heal them up when the boss casts an area of effect ability, since their ability to deal damage relies on staying in place. Going along with this, get to know the other people and how they react to certain situations. Does someone have a bad habit of walking into damaging area of effect spells? Does someone accidentally pull extra trash because they're not paying attention to what they're targeting? If you can learn these habits, you can predict what is about to happen and prepare for the inevitable incoming damage. Number 8. You are the group support. Healing is about more than making health bars go up. I view a healer's job as doing everything possible to help set the group up for success. We can serve as a ready source of extra damage and crowd control if needed, and can help interrupt boss ability casts. Another thing to think about is situational awareness. Due to the demands of our role, we are uniquely suited to serving as the eyes in the back of the tank's head. Don't be afraid to say something if you see a trash mob heading to join the fight. Number 9. The best defense is a good offense. Now this might seem counterintuitive, but there are times where it might actually be better to not heal people. Keep in mind that if there are less enemies dealing damage to your group, you won't have to do as much healing. An excellent example of this is if you're in a boss fight, the boss is almost dead, and he's about to go into a high damage phase. If the people in your group are close to full health, it might be better to start dealing damage to the boss to end the fight before the next phase comes. Knowing the fights will help you judge when to help contribute to DPS rather than healing. Another great example of this is a commando's mortar volley ability, or a scoundrel's bushwhack. Mortar volley is a powerful area of effect damage dealing ability that also knocks down standard and weak enemies. Bushwhack is a strong area of effect damage ability that, if you take the aggressive treatment set bonus, can also be an extra AoE heal. Both of these abilities can help deal with a challenging trash pool, so look for good opportunities to use them. Keep in mind that in operations, it's usually expected that healers help contribute to DPS when they are available to do so, and when it won't impact their ability to heal. Number 10. Learn to self-assess and take ownership for your mistakes. This will probably be the hardest tip to follow, since no one likes to admit when they're wrong. The thing is, you're going to make mistakes that will cause group members to die. It comes with the job. Get into the habit of taking a moment after a wipe to run over the fight in your head. Ask yourself what you could have done better. Were you communicating to your group when someone was standing in a damaging area of effect spell? Did you use a cooldown when it wasn't really necessary? Is there a cooldown you could have used but maybe forgot about? Did you run out of your resource because you weren't healing efficiently? Also, don't be afraid to admit to your group when you caused a wipe, and be sure to apologize. They will appreciate it, since it shows that you're actively trying to improve. Well, that about wraps it up. If you'd like to dive a bit deeper into being an effective healer than is covered in this video, or if you'd like to learn some more intermediate concepts, check out the Healing 101 guide by Lauren linked in the description. Don't forget to check out the links to the boss guides for tips and tricks on dealing with boss mechanics, and please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. See you in the game, and may the Schwartz be with you.